There's stories out there about cars in barns and cars hidden away and tucked away, and a lot of them are fish stories, but a lot of them are real. And I've pulled a lot of cars out of barns and found them hidden. When I was a kid, there was a story that I heard back in the late '70s. I was a young teenager, crazy car kid, and that's just what I do. That's why what I do today, that's my career, being in the car business. It was a friend of my dad's. It was his hunting buddy, fishing buddy, and it was also his attorney, his lawyer, a guy named Tony DeGennaro, great guy. Him and my dad were talking about a Mustang that he heard about in upstate New York. I was from Long Island, and upstate New York is where everybody used to go hunting and fishing and whatever. He had a cabin up there, and my dad used to go up there fishing and hunting, and they were talking about this 69 Mach 1 Mustang that was supposedly sitting in a garage or a barn or a shed somewhere around Woodstock. And the story goes that a guy and his girlfriend were going to Woodstock, and if you know some of the history about Woodstock, there was 18 to 20 miles of backups and traffic in little upstate New York. And technically, the concert at Woodstock and the music gathering wasn't in Woodstock, New York. It was actually in Bethel, New York, which is about 40 miles southwest of Woodstock. And people were parking and abandoning cars just to get to the concert. You know, they sold 186,000 tickets to that event. 400,000 to 500,000 people showed up. They ended up making the event free. The rest is history, as you say. So the story goes that there was a Mustang that overheated on a little two-lane country road in upstate New York, and the guy and his girl left the car off the side. It was by this, I don't know if the guy was a farmer or whatever, and he came out to talk to him and help him. And he said, "Hey, listen, let's push the car up my driveway over here, and you guys, kids, go on and go to the concert and come back later for the car." And that's what they did. Woodstock came and went. This car supposedly sat at this guy's house in his driveway or by his barn or his building. They never came back. They just never came back. During the course of Woodstock, there were 3 documented deaths. There may have been more that were undocumented, nobody knows, but there were 3 that's reported even till this day. If you Google it, there were 3 documented deaths. So this car sat, and I heard the story, and I thought that was kind of cool, and I never forgot it. And I said, someday maybe I'll go to upstate New York and look around, and I'll find that car. Yeah, right. Fish story, starts out the fish is really this big, but you tell everybody it's that big. Life moves on. Early 80s, I'm in the Navy. We used to get our car magazines every month on the ship store. I was on the USS John F. Kennedy, and every month the magazines came in, and I always got hot rod and carcraft, and there was a couple occasional oddball car magazines. This one month, I happened to go in and pick up my carcraft and hot rod, and they didn't have it, but they had, I can't remember the exact name of the magazine. It might have been Cars Illustrated. It was an older car magazine, long gone. That's why I bought it. And it was one of these thin, cheap magazines. It was a shiny front and back. We opened up, it was paper and style magazine inside. Everything was black and white. And there was a section talking about, like people sending stories about cars. And it was a little tidbit story about a Mustang in upstate New York around Woodstock. And I'm like, wow. So I read it. And now I'm older, I'm 19 years old, or it was like 18 or 19 years old. And I said, when I go home, I'll leave. It's only an hour and a half for me to drive to upstate New York. I'm going to cruise around. Maybe I can find this thing. Maybe this, this unicorn is actually a real. I get home and I go home, I leave, and I drive up. I spend an afternoon driving all over Bethel, New York, probing around. I stop at an auto repair place, a garage, and I'm asking around. Everybody's looking at me like I got 3 heads. And I leave. I said, this is just a fish story. That's all it is. I go on with my life. But I always had in the back of my head. A couple of years later, I got out of the service. When I got out of the service at a young age, I got married. My wife at the time was originally from upstate New York, and I knew her since we were in high school, but she used to come down to Long Island. That's how we got to know each other. At that point in my life, I started going upstate New York once a month. Her parents lived up there. Her grandfather owned a big farmhouse. So we were upstate New York all the time. And whenever I go up, I go about an hour west, and I said, I'm going down by Woodstock. I'm going down by Bethel. And I go down, I saw probing around. I asked questions, look for nothing. It just went on from about 84, 5-ish to about 88. I make one trip up. I said, we're not going to your parents' house. I said, we're going to get a little hotel somewhere off the New York State Thruway, right between Woodstock and Bethel, New York. I'm going to make this a quest. Now I became obsessed with it. Now, I never told anybody this story, ever, that I was doing this in this car, and they figured they'd look at me and laugh. This one trip, I go to this auto repair place, and I'm asking the guy, questioning him, and he's like, nah, man, I don't know what you're talking about. I have no idea. Well, this mechanic working on a car, he sticks his head out, and he goes, I think I know what you're looking for. And I was like, what's that? And he goes, well, and this guy was not much older than me. And he goes, this guy named Walter, it was Walter or Wally, I think it was Wally. He goes, he told me that he had a Mustang in his garage that was left over, abandoned on the side of the road, and nobody ever came back for it. And I said, you ever look at it? He goes, no. He goes, I said, where is the guy? I said, you know where he lives? He goes, I don't know where he lives. He goes, but he used to work at a Napa auto parts not too far from here. I was like, all right. So I left. I find this Napa auto parts, and I go in. I ask this guy, and he goes, oh, yeah. He goes, that's Big Wally. He goes, hey, he doesn't work here anymore. He's getting up in age, and, he kind of retired. And I was like, oh. I said, did he ever tell you the story? He goes, he mentioned it. He goes, nobody ever really believed him. It sounded like, like a fishtail. And I was like, all right. I said, where can I find him? He goes, I don't know. He goes, I haven't seen him in months. And he goes, but I can tell you where he lives. And he was on rural Route 6 or something like that. And he goes, I don't know the exact number, but this is what the house looks like. There's a garage barn on it. And he goes, you can't miss it. He's got a bunch of old pickup trucks and a couple old cars and tractors and stuff. I find the house. I get there. Nobody's there. Knock on the door. Nothing. I started looking around the property, and I didn't want to be too nosy and get shot or something like that. Here you are up in the country. I leave and make a little note, and I stick it in the door, put my name. Hey, can you call me? My name is Joe, and blah, blah. I'm from Long Island. I'm looking for this car I heard that might be sitting around here somewhere. Nothing, right? 3 months later, we decided to move to Florida. We leave. We go down to Florida. I lived in Florida for a year. Come back from Florida about a year later, and I'm still in the car business, right? Every now and then I think about this old Mustang. I don't pay any attention to it. Years go on, probably early 90s. I'm reading Hemmings Motor News, and it's probably around 92-3, and there's a tidbit story about a Mustang left over from Woodstock, a 69 Mustang. I'm like, no way. Now here all of a sudden, now the quest starts again. Right, I'm older, I got a few bucks in my pocket, I can take some time, I can travel. I said, all right, this is what we're gonna do. I drove back up, went to the house. House is cleaned up, all the cars are gone, but there's a guy in a U-Haul loading some stuff out of the house. And I walk up, introduce myself, and he goes, I know exactly what you're here for. And yes, the car did exist. I said, did? He goes, this is my dad's house. He goes, my dad passed away about a year and a half ago. He goes, we cleaned it out, we sold the property. And I looked to the right, and I said, what happened to the big garage barn? He goes, oh, that collapsed around 1990. He goes, during a blizzard. He goes, it was pretty old, and it was starting to collapse. He goes, that's where the Mustang was. I was like, what happened to the Mustang? I said, he goes, I know everything about it. I'm like, all right, here we go. Tell me the story. So he goes, it was 69. It was the weekend of Woodstock. He goes, this place was mobbed with people and kids. Car died about 100 feet off the driveway and overheated. He goes, it was a 69. And all I knew about it was a 69 Mustang, maybe a Mach 1, maybe a Boss 302, who knows. But all I knew was red or orange, and that was the whole story. And he goes, nope, it was bright orange. So bright orange is Calypso Coral on a Mustang. He goes, it was a Mach 1, had the Mach 1 stripe on it. He goes, it was a big block 4-speed car with a shaker. I'm like, oh, that's a pretty rare car. He goes, the guy cooked it, it overheated. Anybody knows anything about cars, any big block, Chevy, Ford, Mopar, they don't like heat. They don't like, sitting and idling for long times back then, especially in upstate New York in the middle of August. He goes, so yeah, he goes, he kind of cooked it. They pushed it off the side. He goes, guy never came back. Car sat for about 2 months out here. He goes, it was about October, and me and my dad pushed it in the barn. And he goes, he threw a tarp on it. I figured, this kid will come back for it. Days turned to weeks, months turned to years, and nobody ever showed up. My dad didn't know what to do with the car. He never really told many people about it. He just didn't know what to do, and it just sat and he forgot about it. And it was just in there. Barn started getting kind of coming apart, he said, and the car was, leaked on, it was getting rusted, and the car was kind of rough, but it was all there. By the late 80s, he goes, my dad was getting up in age, and he stopped working, he was retired. 90, we had that big blizzard, and he goes, the barn collapsed. And he goes, then he had to clear the barn out, and at that point, the car was destroyed, and they hauled the car out of here. He goes, went to the local junkyard. I was like, it does exist. He goes, yeah. He goes, he goes, one other guy came around here asking about this car. He goes, about 4 or 5 years ago. And he goes, he left a note on the door. I said, that was me. He goes, you're the guy from Long Island. I said, yes, sir. And he goes, my dad called the phone number and it was disconnected. And I said, about a month after I left that note, I ended up moving to Florida. And I didn't have the same phone number. I didn't have mobile phones back then. You didn't keep the same number forever. He goes, yeah. He goes, he did call the number on that note. And I was like, I was that far away from catching that fish, and the fish story would have been real. I thought about possibly going to the junkyard, and he didn't know which junkyard they hold it off to. A scrap guy came and took it, with a bunch of, they got rid of all the vehicles on the property. And he goes, it wasn't important at the time. In 1990, that was the beginning of the muscle car surge, which kind of started around 86, 87. Stuff was kind of on the radar, but the internet wasn't out there. So it was just, it's a cool old car, and get rid of it. And apparently it was a wreck. I mean, from sitting for years in the barn, it was pretty dilapidated, and the barn was leaking, and the car was a mess, and the barn collapsed on it, and nobody had the idea of saving the car. But apparently it was a big block 428 stick shaker car. And because the guy kind of was a car guy, he kind of knew, because he said what it was. He goes, yeah, it had a shaker hood, and it was bright orange, and it was a stick, and he goes, big block, 4-speed car. So it was kind of a cool car. Never found out where the people were from. He thinks they might have been from Massachusetts or Connecticut. He doesn't remember what plates were on the car. It was a great thing to finally get a little closure on it, that it did exist and it was there. And I never told anybody about it. My best friend Billy, who's since passed away, I told him about it once, and he was like, come on, no. And then I said, no, I gave him a bunch of stories, and I never found any print about the article. I don't have the magazine anymore. Before the internet, nothing ever showed up. And it leaves you with one thought. If you got an idea or a dream and you're kind of trying to follow it and chase it, sometimes you can chase it and get the end of the story, and you find out it wasn't all for nothing. And that's how it goes.
If you get a ticket, the first thing you should do is text a picture of it to 305-305. That will get the ticket clinic on your case immediately. You'll be facing costly fines, risks of suspension, possible jail time, points on your license, higher insurance premiums, and a lot of bad things that they can help you to avoid. You can also find them at the link in the description below, but the Ticket Clinic is a nationwide law firm with brick and mortar offices in Georgia, Florida, and California, but they've got attorneys everywhere, and that's what's most important, because a local attorney will know exactly how the local laws work, know the people who are in charge, and get you the best outcome possible. So text a picture of your ticket to 305-305 or click the link in the description below to fight your ticket with the Ticket Clinic.